Welcome to the UFC Vegas 2 live before lock here on Awesemo.com, on the Awesemo YouTube channel, Twitch, and all the platforms out there. Of course, I am Jason Floyd. That is the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. Of course, we are presented by Super Draft, and we are here for the next hour to talk about, or maybe a little bit longer than an hour.
Yeah.
Keep those questions rolling in, and we'll answer those questions for your last minute, making those DFS lines, whether it's on DraftKings, whether it's on FanDuel, whether it's on Super Draft. We'll help you with those questions. Pete, before we get into it, we got to talk about what happened yesterday during the weigh-in. We had multiple fighters miss weight. We had a fight that ultimately gets scratched, which is Jordan Griffin versus Derek Minner. I forget whether it was on his Twitter or IG. He puts it out there, how many hours he's been throwing up, and very apologetic that he's not going to be able to fight. But let's get for your aspect, the fighter perspective. When you see that, how does that alter your DFS analysis?
Oh man, what's popping, everybody? Happy to have you guys here. The 7K options are terrible once again, and I think that we'll be pretty spoiled in the coming weeks with some great cards. And I'm sure that some of the 7K options will be a lot more viable than this week and the previous week. In saying that, I was decently heavy on Derek Minner based on the footage that I saw in the previous fight against Jordan Griffin. Obviously, he's out of the fight, so that stinks. There goes my 7K cheap guy. You already know that I like Cynthia Calvillo, who's 7,900. She's somebody that I'm looking at in that price range. But now I have to pivot from the Derek Minner pick to somebody in that range. And, I really don't like a lot of the 7K options, Jason, but I'm forced to do it. And obviously I'm going to play. I'm here breaking it down for you guys with Jason. And I have to, try to find somebody or talk myself into picking one of these fighters that could get me a finish.
Yeah, that's something that, of course, we are here to answer your questions, wherever your questions may be. Fire them right now in the chat. And Pete, let's get right into the questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
First off, it goes, what are the best multipliers? So that would be over on the Super Draft aspect of it. And looking at these multipliers, I'm always going to look at the biggest multiplier. That's the first one you're going to stick to. So if you think one of these massive underdogs can pull off an upset, Pete, you got to be thinking about it. To me, in the fight that, I hate Ross in the first fight of the night, but Ivy Aguilera, I think, is a must roster fight just because I think it's going to end by finish. Christian Aguilar is at 2.2 times. And for Anthony Ivy, he's at 1.8 times. That to me is the fight that I turned to initially. What's your thought on some of the multipliers?
Yeah, I like that, what you just said. I tend to like Ivy a little bit more, but I can't, hate on the Aguilera pick based on his excellent boxing. And, that fight in general is very tough because we've seen Anthony Ivy struggle against aggressive strikers when he comes up and takes like a lot of shots and then gets desperate for takedowns and, comes through and gets them. And we've also seen Aguilera, get taken down and controlled and almost look like he could get submitted on the mat if he was facing somebody better. So they both are relatively inexperienced, in comparison to the rest of the card. I do agree with you that fight makes a lot of sense to target, usually lower level guys tend to, have more finishes, so to speak. So Ivy at 1.8 is not a bad play. Merab even at 1.6. Give a multiplier to Merab. Dude, I love it. So he's somebody I'm targeting. And then, some other people, Calvillo at 2.05. I think that's a nice juicy one if it goes 5 rounds. And then an upset is potentially Jourdain at 2.25, where he could get the knockout win against Andre Fili. I think that's the only way he beats Andre Fili is by putting him away.
Next question comes from Kingslayer. He says, take Aguilera on DraftKings. He's getting a knockout win on Ivy. Of course, this is a fight that we talked a lot about on Thursday. When you're looking at matchups that you believe you have to roster, I truly do believe you got to roster that fight. Obviously, you got to pay up for Ivy. I think the only concern I would have, and I know you mentioned this on Thursday, and we've had conversations about it, is what happens if Ivy does get the fight to the mat. He just got his black belt. That's what he's known for. He's looking to take the fight to the ground.
Yeah, I like Ivy's grappling a lot. I like the the way he's just relentless with takedowns and has great takedowns off the cage. He's not somebody that has the best takedowns open mat. I think that he really relies on that forward pressure against the cage to really drive into you and then pull you out, sweep you out, and just continually put pressure on you with ground and pound strikes as well. He does have some TKO wins. That's a fight you need to target. I mean, we've said it a ton, and somebody hit me up on Twitter and they're like, I'm going with Jason's Aguilera pick because Jason's been on fire lately. So I can't fault you. I do have some lineups with Aguilera based on Jason's knowledge.
I mean, look, I've had a chance to talk to Christian over the years. I mean, look, he's going to throw bombs. That's what Christian does. He's going to throw an overhand right, look for the uppercut. Those are the two strikes you're going to have to look for from him. He's going to push the pace forward, and that's something we've talked about with these fights inside the UFC Apex being the smaller cage, which for those who are not aware, I'll pull up the tweet. John Anik had a tweet the other day where Zach, who is the coordinating producer of the UFC, had mentioned the actual size difference in the cage between the 25-footer and the 30-foot cage. So the 25-footer is what they are using. It is 30.5% smaller than the larger cage. It's 518 square feet. The 30-foot cage is 745 square feet. And Pete, as a fighter, that's a big difference. And I think that when you look at, fighters who do like to push the pace, that is Christian Aguilera. He's going to push the pace. So to me, I think it's a fight that you have to make. Mind Power goes, lots of favorites going down tonight. So let's kind of, in the theme of that comment there, let's look at some of the underdogs that we think have the best shot to win. Just Guy right now is actually the betting underdog, even though you look on DK and all the sites, you're going to have to pay a little bit more for her than Cynthia Calvillo. Carl Roberson is a 2-to-1 underdog. Charles Rosa is a little more than 1.5 to 1 underdog. Charles Jourdain's nearly a 2-to-1 underdog. De La Rosa, 1.5. Hannah Cyphers, 3-to-1. Gustavo Lopez, 6-to-1. Gina Mazzani, 4.5 to 1. Zarak Adeshev, he is plus 135. Christian Aguilera, plus 170. And then, of course, Derek Manner's off the card. So, as you think of underdogs, you think I have the best shot to win? Who sticks out to you?
Honestly, based on me having so much Minner in a lot of my lineups, I have had to pivot, and my most common pivots, number one goes to Jourdain. Honestly, I think that Jourdain has been working on his wrestling, and we have seen Feely struggle if you press him a little bit. Also, you have to think about the damage that he took in his last fight against Sadiq Youssef. He was dropped several times, and I know he wasn't finished, but that's still a lot of damage. I think that Feely's the better fighter, but just because you're the better fighter doesn't mean that you're going to always win. It's just who shows up that night, and a lot of luck plays into fighting too. So the other fighter that I'm pivoting towards is not much of Roberson, and it's because of me backing Vettori so much. And Roberson has just he has an equal chance of getting a finish over Vettori, just like Jourdain does over Feely. I just can see it happening to Feely more than I can see it happening to Vettori. That's just my own personal opinion. So the second guy I've been looking at a lot is Christian Aguilera.
Next up, Kingslayer, he goes, I don't see I beating Calvillo. 5 rounds is too long for I. If I is taken down by over 40% people, I will be happy. In terms of the main event, I believe it is a fight that you have to roster. A, the fact that it's 5 rounds. B, the salaries are both reasonable. It's not like you're paying up for either one of them. With Jessica I mean, that was a scary scene yesterday, seeing her on the scale the way she is, and now back-to-back fights where she's missed weight. I don't think my analysis has changed really too much on the fight. I think it's a coin flip fight. And as I was putting my lineup together, half my lineups I actually do have one lineup where I put both of them in a lineup. Yeah. I know we're not big believers in stacking a fight, but I look at this, I do believe it's going to go 25 minutes. That's just my thought. The only thing I'd be concerned about is does the weight cut catch up to Jessica Eye as the fight goes on? If you're a Cynthia Calvillo backer in this one, I think the thought has got to be that at some point she's going to be able to get this fight to the ground.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the weight cut for a little bit. And when Jessica Eye stepped on the scale, she, has missed weight in the past after kind of bashing people who miss weight. It's pretty odd. And then she gets on the scale, and in her eyes, she just looks almost defeated by the weight cut, maybe delirious. And then after they take down the towels and everything, and she's supposed to pose for the pictures, she steps off. She goes, "I don't think I can stand." Then following all of that, right, she puts a social media post out there saying, that, the Apex Arena was just, it was just freezing and she was very cold and all that. And I think that's kind of like, she's getting so much heat for missing weight to begin with. And then I think it's pretty obvious that she had a terrible weight cut, a botched weight cut. Maybe it's the shorter notice. But I think I'm pretty surprised that the doctors allowed her to fight based on the appearance, body language. So I've cut weight plenty of times. I've been around a lot of my fighters who cut weight, and she looks like she had a bad weight cut. Now, that doesn't mean that she can go in there and, immediately lose. She's still in the fight, but I think the longer the fight goes, I honestly think it could favor Cynthia Calvillo, especially if she can tax Jessica Eye's, cardio system a little bit. But for me, it just reinforced my Calvillo pick, and I like Calvillo even more now.
Yeah, it's I'm going back and forth on this one. I'm just, in terms of who do I take. Next up, Kingslayer with another comment says also De La Rosa, I think, can end the match early against Espinoza.
I'd be shocked. Before we even started breaking down this card, I'm pretty sure I texted you and I was like, De La Rosa is going to be a value play for me. And then I watched some film. I'm like, shoot, I can't really talk myself into that. Now, that's another pivot off of Derek Minner for me. I think I have like one lineup with him. I probably should have more. But the problem is the weight class. These guys are at a lower weight class where finishes are hard to come by. Espinoza has struggled against submissions in the past, and I think that's De La Rosa's path to victory here is get behind Espinoza and choke him out. But I think Espinoza has good takedown defense and can handle himself. And as long as he can, keep it on the feet and stick and move and work his good boxing and take down the fence and even take down offense, I think that he should coast to a victory here. Maybe the shorter cage helps De La Rosa here. Who knows?
Next up from Ty says, can we get an updated cash core? So many fight changes. FanDuel, please. Of course, this is a go-to question for Ty every week here in terms of that cash score. Look, to me, I'm going to naturally look at Ivy and Aguilar just because of their price is so low. I look at Merab Dvalishvili. I feel pretty confident about he's going to score well. You know what you're going to get out of Merab. Yeah. Gustavo stepping up on 48 hours notice to take this fight is kind of question. And I would also look at, even though he's going to be so chalky, is Tyson Nam.
Yeah. So talking about Tyson Nam, we broke it down on our strategy show. Tyson Nam's in a safe matchup to win the fight. Now, does he do enough to really become in the optimal lineup? I don't know. Against his Kai Kara France and Pettis, he didn't really put together a lot of strikes where if he doesn't get the finish would warrant him being in the optimal lineup. I think he had like 55 or 60 strikes. Okay, so that's 30. And then you add that. He's under 70 points, under 75 points if he gets a decision win. Now, in this matchup, does he get a couple takedowns? I think that he does. And I think that the wide hooks of Zaruk Adeshev, I hope Zaruk does well, I think that he could look for a takedown just to really make sure that he gets the round so he doesn't get cut from the UFC. But cash score, I think Nam's chalky. I don't hate it. I think Merab, you need to have him. I think Calvillo at 16 is nice. And I'd agree with you that the first fight of the night, either Ivy or Aguilera, based on the FanDuel pricing, needs to be in your lineup.
Of course, this is a live before lock for UFC Vegas 2. First fight starts here at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. out on the West Coast. Do want to let you know that this show is presented by SuperDraft. The future of daily fantasy sports has arrived. Experience SuperDraft's exclusive game mode multiplier. You heard us talking about a little bit earlier. Say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. SuperDraft offers contests for PGA, NASCAR, and MMA so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for SuperDraft today using the promo code AWESOMO, and it's $10 free on your first deposit of $10 or more and $20 free on your first deposit of $100 or more. Download in the App Store or play at superdraft.io. SuperDraft, no limits, more winning. Of course, be sure to go over to awesomeo.com. Got a lot of great free content up there. One of those free contents that you can check out is Pete's spreadsheet that you see on the strategy show every week. Also, we got the tail of the tape from Mark Stein, and Alex has his cheat sheet up there. Also, I want to let you know about a great offer we have going on right now. Get access to all of the great Awesemo Plus tools and the content for tonight's MMA slate with an MMA weekly pass for $8.95. That includes full access to Awesemo's leading fighter projections, ownership projections, and the top fighter tool. Yeah, there's never been a better time for MMA DFS to get in the game today. Of course, be sure to also hit that thumbs up here on YouTube, and we're going to get right back to the questions, Pete. Next up, Ty also asks, he goes, and what value guys are you looking at? Seems like the construction, you need a guy down low like Roberson to fit in the rest of your lineups. You know, this is, and I guess I'll kind of bring up on DraftKings, the captain contest. I tried putting Merab in the captain spot. I don't know how you do it. To where I line up where you're going to like it. You know, to me, when I look at those low ends options, I look at Christian Aguilar. Look, Christian could score 100 points. He could also score 10. That's just, you know, it's risk versus reward in that fight, because I truly believe that fight is going to go out there. I don't have any lineups. I maybe have one lineup with Gina Mazzani in there. I don't expect that she's going to get the win against Julia Avila. You know, the Carl Roberson thing is, missing weight by 4 pounds. You know, kind of you question there. Obviously, there's a lot of heat in that fight. Will either one of those guys fight emotional? I just think Barmatori is just an overall better fighter.
Yeah, I mean, let me just say that if you care about your money, you shouldn't be playing this card, and it's because that there are so many unknowns. So this is possibly the worst DFS MMA slate we've ever encountered before, based on all the variables and everything. I mean, let's be real. You have one chalky guy that everybody's going to have in Merab Dvalishvili, and then there are so many question marks everywhere else. Even the main event almost was scrapped because of a botched weight cut. So, you know, be careful with this. But in saying that, I think that you could gain some leverage in a bunch of situations. And in one of the situations is the main event. If you believe Jessica I can win, I think a lot of people are pulling off Jessica I and going the Cynthia Calvillo route because of the bad weight cut and the body language of Jessica I. I do think Jessica I could come in there with a little bit lower ownership than we're projecting, based on you know, everything that happened yesterday and transpired at the weigh-ins. The 7K options, again, are bad. Now, there's a 7K option nobody's talking about, and I actually, you know, you have to diversify a little bit and mix up your lineups and get the top people you like and take a shot, because all these 7,000 options are pretty much equal to pulling out a victory. I mean, they're tough to say. So I can't really say which one I like more than another, but Hannah Cyphers, okay? Now hear me out. Hannah Cyphers has been fighting in the UFC, and she has had a bunch of tough UFC fights, okay? Her opponent, Agapova, has not had a UFC fight, only had a Contender Series fight. Agapova comes in fighting, you know, somebody she might be underestimating based on her size advantage over Hannah Cyphers. And Hannah Cyphers actually looked pretty decent against Mackenzie Dern early on before she ended up getting submitted quickly. But it's not a pick that I like, but it's a pick I put in one of my lineups just in case Hannah Cyphers tough enough. Maybe she does have takedowns. She did take down Jody Escobar in her fight and won that fight. Maybe she can take her down. If she puts Agapova on her back because of the smaller cage, you could be looking at somebody in the 7,000 range that nobody has. And honestly, rightly so that nobody has. But I have one lineup with her.
Bro, you got to question a fire IQ decides to go to the ground with Mackenzie Dern.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. But Mackenzie Dern basically did pull guard, though.
Yeah, but she did not try to get out of that position either.
No,
She could have tried to escape. And I remember I go, why are you playing foot grab right now?
Yeah,
why are you doing this?
Yeah, that was dumb. She also fought, recently. So she might be coming off of a good camp. So it's not a pick that I like, Jason, but these 7K options stink and we have to take some shots.
Next up from Jason Miller says thoughts on stacking Vettori Roberson instead of the main event in a main card only event.
I see what he's saying because, Vettori's notorious for going to the decision, but I don't like that play because I don't think both of them score well. I think it's either one or the other, and I'm leaning Vettori.
Jason also asked which fighter that missed weight should be removed from a lineup, or does that not change anything?
So Jessica, I missed weight, and for me, it makes me, feel a little bit more comfortable with Cynthia Calvillo because you don't really know if it was a strategic move or if it was a really bad weight cut. And I would tend to say it's a really bad weight cut because she missed weight in her previous fight. And you don't want to really make the UFC upset with you missing back-to-back. So I think that whole strategic thing, I don't think that's it.
Next up, this comes from Dan. He's got back-to-back questions here. First one is DraftKings Cash Core, and the second one is, does Roberson coming in heavier make Vettori less safe or make Roberson more viable? Excuse me.
Cash Core, I think not putting Dalashvili in your lineup is just silly. Could his opponent do it and knock out Dalashvili? Of course, because Dalashvili doesn't really have the best striking, and his opponent does have some pop. In saying that, he's taking the fight on, a day or two notice. So, and you're fighting a guy who's like the Khabib of the 135-pound weight class. I don't like that matchup for him at all. So Dalashvili's a safe play. Targeting somebody in the main event based on the price because they're going to outproduce their salary. For me, it's Calvillo slightly. And then I think a safe mid-range play is Tyson Nam to get a decision. I just don't know if he really scores the best. Did I lose you?
For chalk, which will be the pivot due to ownership.
I don't know. What do you think?
I think because of the weight, I think people will pivot to her.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think so. I think a lot of, like I said earlier, I think a lot of people will go Calvillo because of seeing the bad body language of Jessica I.
Next up, let's go to Timothy. He goes, he mentioned about Aguilar for the 7K fighter upset. I mean, that's one that we have definitely mentioned. King says Roberson missed on weight on purpose, man. He looks so proud at the weigh-ins, LOL. Look, when you know you're taking on a grappler, having the extra weight may help you out a little bit.
See, I don't know about that because if you are the grappler and you miss weight, you can use that weight to your advantage by being able to control your opponent even more than before, right? If you're a striker and you miss weight, I know he's trying to be heavier for his opponent, but I think that I don't think it really works that way. And I think that if Vettori was the one missing weight, then I'd be all over Vettori even more. But I don't really think it helps Roberson out as much as he thinks. I think he's doing anything to try to get into Vettori's head or anything to gain a slight advantage. Maybe he's not confident going in there against Vettori.
Next, John asked favorite replacement fighters. So when we're talking about replacement fighters, we are looking at Adeshev and Lopez. I guess I would say Adeshev, just because I've had an opportunity to talk to Tyson Nam for years.
Yeah.
He has got the grappling in his back pocket if he wants to use it. But when I spoke to him about 2 weeks ago. So this was obviously before everything changed. I very much walked away from the interview going, he wants to knock this guy out. I don't think that's changed. Now, the fact that he's lost back-to-back fights, maybe feels his UFC status is on the line here. Maybe he does go that grappling, but between those two, I would be more comfortable taking Adeshev than I would Lopez.
Yeah, I mean, they're not really good picks for DFS, but I would say that facing Merab is a much more difficult task than facing Tyson Nam. Zaruk Adeshev does have great kickboxing. He really does. He has good kickboxing. He's fought in Glory Kickboxing, Bellator on the same card that I fought on. And, he has good striking, but he's very wide with his striking. So lots of hooks into throws. But I just don't see it being the easiest fight for him either. But in that situation, I'd have to favor Zaruk.
Next up, Jason goes, Nam or Jourdain, better option to replace Minner?
I have both, Jason. I would say Jourdain has a higher likelihood of finishing the fight, whereas Nam is a safer bet to win the fight. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Next up, Russell goes, who's your favorite $14 and under pick? So your $14 and under on FanDuel are Charles Rosa, Christian Aguilera, Charles Jourdain, Carl Roberson, Hannah Cyphers, Adeshev, Mazzani, and Lopez.
Who are you going with?
I look at, not to sound like a broken record, I look at Aguilar just because of the ability to finish the fight. I would more like Rosa in a cash games as opposed to GPP. Jourdain, we mentioned about, the knockout ability. I really don't like Carl Roberson, even though there definitely is a path to him winning the fight.
Yeah.
I would, if I was going to rank him, I would go Aguilera, Jourdain, Rosa.
I'd go Jourdain, Aguilera, Roberson. And that's crazy because I don't really like Roberson. But his likelihood of getting a finish is his only chance against Vettori.
Yeah. Next up, DJ Killer Kev says, favorite FanDuel GPP strategy tonight?
I think a strategy for GPP is all about leveraging ownership. So if you can play the ownership or what you really think, I can already tell you that Calvillo is going to be more popular today than she was 2 days ago. I might be coming in a little bit undervalued for a fight that is going to go 5 rounds. And I do believe that Calvillo wins the fight. That's just me. But I might be going a little bit underowned. You already know the chalk play is going to be Merab Dvalishvili. Perhaps he doesn't score the best because his opponent keeps it on the ground and doesn't continue to get back to his feet. We talked about that on the strategy show. So maybe pivoting off of Dvalishvili could be a bold strategy, but maybe it works for you. I would tend to say it doesn't. And then I think maybe even avoiding Tyson Nam could work out in your favor because a lot of people are seeing the 30 fights against the 4 fights, and perhaps he doesn't score the highest. You know what I'm saying?
He's going to be a chalky play tonight.
Yeah, he is.
At that 8,000 number, we both know it. The chalky plays are going to be Tyson Nam and Merab Dvalishvili. Of course, if you are Awesemo Plus member, you can go over to awesemo.com to check out the fighter projections that Alex has up there, ownership projections. Look, I expect Tyson Nam's going to be pretty highly owned tonight. Next up, let's go to Akavili says, is Julia Avila a good fade if she doesn't get a finish, plus she hardly goes for a takedown, just mainly a striker?
Let me see. I think Julia might be going over owned. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm fading her a little bit more than I think the public is. And the reason I'm fading Julia Avila is because of, I don't know, maybe her opponent's willingness to press her against the cage and look for the takedown. And in Julia Avila's previous fight, I wasn't too impressed against Pani Kianzad. Now, Avila is the better fighter in this situation against Gina Mazzani. That's just the truth. She should be the A side of the fight, and she should go in there and win, even if it is closer than what people are expecting. Could she throw a couple combinations and drop Gina Mazzani? I could definitely see that happening. But I am slightly fading her. I just hope that me fading her isn't, reminiscent to the Herbert Burns last week when I faded him. And, it could happen, but I'm going to be more on Dalashvili than any of the 9,000 options.
Yeah, over on the ownership projections that Alex has up on the FanDuel side of things, he has Julia Avila being the highest owned at 59%, Cynthia Calvillo at number 2 at 56%. Over on the DraftKings side of things, he has Calvillo number 1 at 55%, Dalashvili number 2 at 52%. So we'll see how those play out here. Next up, let's go over to Adam says, I is the easiest leverage play.
I'd agree with that. That's, I don't know about, it's definitely a leverage play. And the other leverage play would be playing Dalashvili's opponent or avoiding Dalashvili. I don't recommend doing that, but you can already tell where the ownership's going to go on this card, and I can't blame him for saying that.
Chase has 2 questions. First up, he says, how much does experience help Tyson Nam? And number 2, how much does 4.5 pounds help Roberson?
Dude, I love these questions. Good questions, guys. I appreciate it. I say experience helps a lot, especially in the UFC octagon, but also in MMA. Zaruk does have a lot of fights. I know only 4 MMA, but he does have an extensive kickboxing background. Okay. Now that means something, but in MMA, it's completely different when guys are able to take you down at will, and make you pay for being wild and aggressive. In kickboxing, if you're wild and aggressive and you get, crazy, you just start humming things left and right, and your opponent clinches up with you, the referee's there to break you up. In MMA, that's not going to happen, and the grappling and everything's going to continue. So I think that the MMA experience definitely favors Tyson Nam in this situation. Now, the 4.5 pounds for me, I don't think helps Roberson that much. Maybe it does. Maybe Vettori struggles to take him to the mat, but I think Vettori's skilled enough to beat him on the feet too.
Next up, Travis says, what do you think about taking Rosa and Adeshev as GPP options?
I think the Rosa pick for GPP is possible because he could get knocked down, take down Aguilar, and then submit him, or off his back. He's really slick with arm bars. But the stuff that I saw Dan Ige put Kevin Aguilar in the situations, Kevin Aguilar looked pretty skilled on the ground and was able to reverse some positions and have Dan Ige in some trouble before he was started to get lit up later in the fight. But I think that Rosa will be one of the most popular 7,000 options because people maybe have been going to Minner, and now Rosa looks like the most reliable 7,000 option out there besides Calvillo.
Corey asks, Adeshev or Roberson?
Shout out to my boy Adeshev. I hope he wins, but I think Roberson in this situation based on the finishing ability.
Next up, Tom talking about the top 6 odds for Aguilar and Ivy. I think that the likelihood is you got a good chance of both. The winner of that fight, I think, has had a really good chance. Man, look at me talking about how you got a roster first fight of the night.
I tell you, I feel like the past 3 months has been like a bad dream, and you're just adding on to it right now.
Yeah, just looking at the top 6 percentage for that fight. So it has Christian at 45.9% and Ivy at 23.8.
Now, I think that's salary based because you need to find a 7,000 option that can come through for you. And I think that Aguilera. He has the toughest name I think I've ever struggled with in my life. I honestly cannot stop thinking about saying Christina Aguilera, and I don't know why, but it's making me angry, and I literally have to force myself to like say his name properly. Christian Aguilera is going to be a popular 7,000 play based on his knockout ability.
No question about that. Pierce says, is Rosa a good GPP play? Can't find many people to pay down in the 7K range.
I think he could work out. I did see Charles. The thing with Charles Rosa is he gets hit a lot, but he throws so many kicks. Now, he's going to be looking to take it to the mat. That's where he's most comfortable. The problem is that Kevin Aguilar does have good takedown defense, but after looking at Kevin Aguilar yesterday at the weigh-ins, he looked a little out of shape. But going back to some of his other fights, his midsection doesn't really look like the most targeted area on him for shapeness. But maybe he's in better shape than I think. But as long as he's able to defend some takedowns, I think it's going to be a pretty close fight. I think I have a slight lean to Kevin Aguilar, but I can't fault you for picking the 7,800 Charles Rosa.
Bill says, need help with my FanDuel GPP MVP spot. I was thinking Ivy, Aguilera, Minda. I'm guessing he meant to say Marab. Julia or Cynthia in different lineups. What do you think? I feel like Marab would be the safe play.
Yeah, I don't know how. Marab's like a home run pick for me. It's like having Mike Trout. I'll definitely roster Marab a lot. I think that his potential, even in this bout, what happens if the guy is super tough and he's able to just rack up tons of points and gets a submission win at the end? Because if you look at his career, he has, I think, like one, maybe two finishes, tons of decisions. But maybe, he's just going to show this kid that he's not on his level and he's going to get a decisive win here.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at the scoring. We always talk about how DraftKings is so favored towards the grapplers. Takedowns are 9 points in that MVP spot for, if you're looking at Marab. I mean, he had 12 takedowns in his last fight. And when you look at this winning streak that he's had, the 3-fight winning streak, prior to his last fight, he got 5 takedowns in each one of those. And his significant strikes landed were in the range of 58 to 65. So you know what you're getting in Marab. Next up from Anthony says Feely and Aguilera or Avila and Adeshev.
So another headache is that there's a guy named Aguilera and a guy named Aguilar. So if he's saying Feely and Aguilar,
Aguilar.
Yeah, I have a few lineups with that. Or Avila and Adish. I like the Feely and Aguilar, honestly.
Pierce asks us, how confident are y'all on I seeing how bad she looked on the scales yesterday? Look, there was a time, I want to say it was last year, where the fighter missing weight had a winning record in the UFC. And also, look, she's got, 30 hours to recover from that. I think my concern would be if this fight does hit minute 20, 24-ish. Where is that gas tank?
I mean, the likelihood that it's going to, right? I mean, that it's going to go the distance. I'd be surprised if it ended early. And if it does end early, I'd be very surprised to see Jessica Ai as the victor. But I think it hurts her, man. She's not a grappler. So I don't